Good afternoon. This is the Hillsdale College Career Services webinar series on graduate and career paths right after Hillsdale. And today I'm joined by 2015 graduate Kadeem Noray. Kadeem, welcome to this program. And if you could give a quick intro of your time at Hillsdale, that'd be great.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I graduated in 2015, and I graduated with degrees in mathematics, physics, and economics. So I kind of took a little bit of a crooked path, I guess, with a lot of sort of turns. And ultimately, I decided that what I like is economics. And so I'm currently studying at Harvard, focusing on applied economics. But right after Hillsdale, I got a master's degree in applied economics from Montana State University.
Okay, and what first got you interested in pursuing graduate degrees in economics, whether it would be at Montana State or Harvard? What first gave you that spark?
Well, so while I was at Hillsdale, originally what I sort of thought I saw myself doing was maybe becoming an engineer, maybe becoming a scientist. And I took a microeconomics course taught by Ivan Pongrasic at Hillsdale. And that sort of set me off, and I realized that was a really extremely interesting field. I'd kind of read it a little bit on my own, but I didn't realize how fulfilling it could be in a classroom setting. And really after that happened, a couple of semesters later, so that was my sophomore year, a couple of semesters later, I realized I wanted to major in it. And by my senior year, I was convinced that I really wanted to ultimately teach, and I wanted to do potentially research in that field. And so those were the things. It seemed like a natural career path for me once I realized I wanted to teach and do research in economics to go on and get a graduate degree.
Great. Now, as a student, what do you do to prepare you best for graduate school? Were there any particular classes, any particular internships, jobs, clubs, anything in particular that you did that you felt best prepared you for grad school in economics?
Yeah, so there's a huge answer to this, to what you could do to prepare yourself for graduate school in economics, and I'll give a partial answer here. I'm actually currently working on a short paper that I was going to send to Dr. Steele at the economics department, which is basically a how-to list for going on to do graduate school in economics and what you should do. And so I will definitely, I would send students that for more comprehensive take. But basically, what I did that was helpful to get a graduate degree was it's not all about the economics courses you take. It's also about the math and the analytical ability you're able to build as an undergraduate. A lot of people don't realize that economics graduate programs require you to, at the bare minimum, essentially have a minor in math. And so I got lucky because I was in a very analytical set of disciplines, math and physics, before I switched over to economics. It's not so easy going the other way where you're loving economics, then your senior year comes around and you realize, oh, all the graduate programs want me to have through like differential equations. Now what am I going to do? So that's one thing that I'd say is really important. The other big thing is figuring out what research looks like at sort of an academic level, and whether or not it interests you, because there are kind of two paths you can go on. You can try and become a research professor and try and produce research, and most programs are geared towards turning you into a researcher, or you could choose a program that's going to maybe not allow you to do as cutting edge research, but maybe focuses more on you getting teaching skills, and maybe you're aiming to teach at a liberal arts school. That's something that's really important to realize before you actually go out. And that I would totally give different advice depending on your ultimate goals, with whether or not you just want to teach or if you want to do research. Those things make a big difference.
And of course, I know you've done a lot of research, and you've even gone on conferences outside of Hillsdale. I think you went to one in Mexico, in fact, just to present some of your research or to be familiar with the research out there. Now I'm familiar with the selectivity of the Harvard PhD program and the Montana State University program, and I think that's a very good representation of Hillsdale out there. How do you think that the education style at Hillsdale allowed you to best set yourself apart at Montana State and I guess at Harvard as you've prepared for that?
Well, so a couple of things. So going to Montana State, it's an excellent program. But the nice thing about it is it's an excellent program that a lot of people sort of don't know about. And so it's the kind of thing where for a Hillsdale student who's going through it, and this was the case for me too, if you sort of don't get everything together until sort of the end, you realize you want to go to graduate school, a master's degree at Montana State or there are a host of places that have good master's degrees, but a master's degree at Montana State can really prepare you to then go get a PhD if you don't have everything you need coming out of an undergraduate degree. That's what I use it for. But to answer your main question, what Hillsdale allows you to do is they really teach you about the fundamental economic concepts and how to explain them well to sort of anybody that you would talk about. And so at Hillsdale you sort of learn the ins and outs of explaining things at a very fundamental level. That's a really general explanation, but I've come to realize that that's something that not a lot of economics students get at other universities. When I'm learning microeconomics and people are sort of struggling with some of the math, for me, it's helpful to think about what's changing with actual people's incentives and how does this work? And a lot of the stuff that is taught at Hillsdale, it gets at the explanation at that sort of fundamental of a level, and it can help you make progress on problems where other people are just sort of seeing lines and intersections and like optimization and stuff. Because honestly, the math is just sort of a way of representing something that's much deeper, which is actual human behavior. And I think Hillsdale professors really get that. They teach you that well.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and you mentioned that you want to go on to teaching. What's the next steps for you? And is there anything else that you'd like to add for any of our viewers that are watching?
Well, for me, I'm just getting settled in here in Cambridge. So I'm actually in the middle of math camp for my program, which is a week-long, 5 8-hour days of just math preparations so that you're ready to sort of start your courses. So that's a representation that I'm serious. The math is really important if you want to be able to do this. But so I'm going to get started with my first semester in 2 weeks. And after 2 years of courses, that's when you generally go into doing your own research. And I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be on yet. There are lots of things that I'm interested in. But yeah, so I'm just going to be here doing courses and then doing research for the next 5 years. I don't think there's anything else that I'd add to Hillsdale College students, except to when the econ website finally puts up the paper that I'm writing that sort of explains what you should do to get into graduate school, you should read that. You should ask Dr. Steele about that. He'll get that pretty soon. And that gives a very comprehensive, probably maybe too comprehensive. It's pretty long at this point, but it gives a comprehensive look at what you need to look at if you're making this decision, because I think it'll make it easier for more students to do the sort of thing that I did.
Of course. Well, thank you very much, Kadeem, for coming in to talk today. And of course, check out that paper once it's published. If you have any other questions, feel free to post them below, and we will have those forwarded to Kadeem. In the meantime, Kadeem, thank you very much for joining us today on this webinar series. We really appreciate your time and your representation of Hillsdale, and you're making us proud.